So just as I sat down to film, my dryer, which was being kind of loud in the background, finished its cycle. So that's exciting. In today's video, I'm going to be ranking 6 of the most recent palettes that have been added to my eyeshadow palette collection. I've had a chance to play with these, work with them a little bit, try them with others, try them by themselves, do a couple of looks, and I want to share with you some of my final thoughts as far as the palettes, the color stories, the formula, the presentation, everything. If you're new here, hello, my name is Rachel. I'm a homeschooling stay-at-home mom who enjoys eyeshadow. Everything on my channel is eyeshadow related, and I upload several videos every week. So check the description box for lots more information, and I hope you'll consider liking and subscribing before you go. I'll be numbering these palettes because ranking videos are fun, and I just wanted to share with you guys some thoughts that I've come up with as I've gone through using them. I've had a chance to play with them. I'm just having a good time enjoying my beautiful eyeshadow palette collection, but some things definitely rise to the top and others definitely drop down a little bit for whatever reason. So today we're going to talk about those reasons. Please remember that this is all based on personal preference, color story, skin tones, formulas, and techniques that we just prefer. So don't get upset if we have different preferences, because that's what makes life interesting, honestly. We're going to start with number 6, and this was a palette that I received in a trade. It was given to me. I gave one of my subscribers actually Paletopoly, and she gave me the Hey Reindeer palette from Urenzai, and she also gave me this. This is the Subculture palette. This is the Subculture palette from Anastasia Beverly Hills. Now this palette came on the market well before my time here in the beauty space at all, definitely before I ever watched a beauty YouTube video for a tutorial, ever got into eyeshadow, etc. But the subscriber who gave this to me, she said she really likes this palette, and so I was excited to try it and see, because I know that there was some drama around this one. Like, I wasn't here for all of that drama, and honestly, I'm not that interested in the drama. This is a drama-free zone. But here's the Subculture palette, Anastasia Beverly Hills, and I think the color story is really pretty. I am ranking this one at the bottom of today's list because while I think the color story is pretty, at this point, and now maybe this was groundbreaking at the time, but at this point, what we have now, and I have mostly indie brands, the color story is not very unique. It's not bringing anything new or special to my collection. And I think that it leans just a little bit dark. I wish there were 1 or 2 true pastels that I could use to brighten up the dark mattes or to do an inner corner highlight. Also the shimmers in this palette. Now, granted, this is old. I don't know when it was launched, but it's a couple years old, right? I don't even think ABH makes this palette anymore. So keep that in mind. Maybe this is my experience based on rather an expired palette. Anyway, the shimmers themselves, the shimmers are not super exciting. This one I did use and I thought it was very pretty. Not amazing, but very pretty. This one I used and it did absolutely nothing. So again, maybe it's just old. I can't even fault the palette per se for what it is. It's just my experience of the palette. You know what I mean? But on the whole, I do think it's a beautiful color story. It's very, very appropriate for the fall, like the cooler months when all the leaves are falling from the trees and we're dressed up in boots and scarves. It's lovely for that. One of the times I used this palette, I thought that these greens, particularly these two, would be more green on the skin than they actually are. And also I wish that there was some difference between the two. This one actually ended up looking darker than this one, which I wasn't expecting. And this one ended up looking a lot more blue than green, which I figured I'd get from this, but not this one. I don't know. I haven't loved using it. I think it's pretty, but it's not bringing a lot of excitement to me. So I'm glad that I got to try it. I do have one other ABH palette. I have the Nouveau, which is after their like rebrand. I don't know if they've reformulated, but it's also much newer, and that's just a color story I prefer. So that one is kind of down to formula in general. The mattes aren't quite as true to color as I'd wished, and the shimmers are not very striking. In spot number 5, I have a brand that I bought off of Amazon. This is a dupe for the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude, and it's the Lamora Nude palette. This is between $10 and $12 on Amazon. So this palette is ranking where it is, because honestly, it's not a very stimulating color story. It really isn't. However, I think that it's a well-rounded color story. I mean, I liked the color story of I Need a Nude. I just knew that I would never get my money's worth out of it because I'm not going to use it frequently enough for it to make sense that I buy that palette. But when I heard that this was a good dupe for that palette in formula and colors, I thought, well, I can spend $10 for that color story. I'm not going to spend 80 or 70 or whatever it is. So I really like this palette because when this is what I want, it's going to give it to me really nicely. It gives me some lighter tones, some darker tones. We've got inner corner highlights. We have shimmers in varying, all within this color story, but these varying versions of it. You have more neutral shimmers, more warm tone shimmers, more cool tone shimmers, more pinky shimmers. It's got some nice variety considering that it's a very soft and not very exciting or stimulating color story, it still does it pretty well. It's not an exact dupe as far as, I believe 3 of the shades from the Natasha palette are not in here because it's not as big, but I like it. And I like it. And when this is what I want, I'm really happy to have this option. I just know that's the kind of look I'm going for today. So I'm going to grab this palette. I'm going to get a good result. I'm going to think it's pretty. I'm going to think it's easy. I'm going to think it's fast. And I really have no qualms. I recommend this palette. I mean, if you like it, or you like the I Need a Nude, but maybe you don't want to spend that price. I have seen several videos on YouTube. Jen Phelps was one, maybe 1 or 2 others, who are directly comparing, live swatching both palettes side by side, and people are saying that this is a good dupe. So it's falling a little bit lower in my countdown only because of the color story. It's not really wild and fun, but it's still good, and it does what it does well. Here's a brand that I've decided not to support on my channel, but I felt like I had to include it today because I do technically own it. I did acquire it this year somebody gave it to me, and I have used it. So I'm going to talk about it in today's video, and then I probably won't mention it anymore. This is from Lunar Beauty, the 12 Days of Lunar. This was part of an advent calendar, I think last Christmas, and honestly, I thought that it was a great idea, an advent calendar for eyeshadows. You know, you get the palette and you get the shades to go in. I thought it was a fantastic idea. The problem, which everybody agrees, is that the outer packaging in no way matches the colors you get on the inside. Aside from that, I mean, the color story is beautiful. This is a gorgeous color story. It's pigmented, it's lovely, and when I've used this palette, I've enjoyed my looks. I've thought that they were so pretty. I think the mattes are really easy to work with and very buildable, very blendable, extremely pigmented. It could use like 1 or 2 pastels, maybe instead of a black, because we do have 1 or 2 deeper shades. A pastel would have been helpful, I think. And the shimmers are so sparkly. I really enjoyed the quality of this formula. The reason I'm not supporting Lunar Beauty anymore is, well, you do your own research. I'm not going to get into that, but I felt like I should include it in today's video because I have used it. I did get it. It is technically part of my collection, but I'm not going to be featuring it on my channel. I felt like I needed to include it, but that was just my decision. Anyway, yeah, I've really enjoyed the formula and everything. I have no qualms with the product itself, except that the packaging doesn't match, but I can cover over that with a pretty picture. Okay, now on to a brand that I definitely do support, and specifically a palette which has garnered the affections of so many people. This is Sydney Grace and the Tiny Marvels palette, when they collaborated with the much beloved Mel Thompson. I got this one pretty recently. I've been trying to find my Sydney Grace holy grail, because the way I feel about Sydney Grace is that they have just a beautiful formula. Their mattes are some of the best that I've got in my whole collection, and the shimmers are buttery and creamy. They are beautiful. It's just that the shimmers don't delight me because I really like a sparkly shimmer. By the way, did I mention today's eyeshadow look, which does have sparkly shimmers? I will be featuring this look in my next While I Was Out. Today I used the Mighty Monster palette from Udenzai. I recently published a video about that whole palette and talking about Udenzai and whether or not their formula was slipping. I think the look is pretty and I love the sparkle. So that being said, I love sparkly shimmers. I'm not interested in satins. I do like metallics, but not like crazy, wild, insane, over the top. My favorite is a lightweight, sparkly shimmer. And while these are beautiful, the Sydney Grace shimmers are beautiful quality, they're not sparkly, and that's the only reason. This is a lovely color story. I really like the square, I don't know why I said 9, the square pans instead of the circular pans. The shimmers are beautiful, the color selection is lovely. I really like these tones over here, these rosy pinky tones, a little fun pop of green and the pinky purples and peachy shades here. And then I really like these 3 here as well. This is a great transition color, and then some beautiful popping, very bright, very lovely colors. My least favorite shades in this palette, well, Walk and Stick is just not the best undertone for me. I'm never going to use a bright gold. I just don't use golds, basically. It's not that I dislike them, I just don't like to wear them on myself, or at least not for a large portion of my eye look. Maybe an inner corner highlight or pop on the lower lash line or something like that, but I'm probably never going to use this shade. It's extremely yellow gold. I'm just not drawn to it. And this shade, there's something about this undertone that I don't love. But aside from that, I really like all the shades in the palette. The formula is beautiful. I've gotten some really pretty looks out of this palette. The one that's slightly higher is the Sydney Grace Blessed palette in a collaboration with Glitzy Fritzy. This one is a little higher because of the undertones. This one has cooler undertones, which just work better on my skin tone. I was planning on decluttering this, and every single time I wore a look with it, everybody said, whether it was while I was out or like, you know, I'd use this palette and then talked on camera, however it worked out, everybody said that it looked awesome. So I just decided to keep it because clearly there's some value, like other people are seeing that it's better on me than I'm recognizing for myself, if that makes sense. So I'm going to keep it. I'm going to play with it. This has this leans much cooler than Tiny Marvels. That one leans more true earth tones, dirt kinds of browns, you know. Fine, just not as good on my undertones. I wish that this had square pans because there's something about the circular pans. I think they remind me of ColourPop. And ColourPop is what I started with, but I've since decluttered almost everything because the formula is just not as good as my other brands. And so I feel like I'm moving backwards when I use circular pans, and that's very me specific. Anyway, the formula is beautiful. The looks that I'll get out of this palette are lovely. I haven't used it a lot. The last time I used it, I tried to put Sugar Tiger everywhere, and I was just very unhappy with the look itself, not the quality. It was just, I guess that day, I didn't end up liking a white-based pink as a shimmer shadow. Just that day, my mood, my outfit, etc. So I ended up covering over it with something else in here, and then I liked the look. That was featured in a previous While I Was Out, probably the most recent one here on my channel. Anyway, this palette is ranking a little higher than Tiny Marvels. It just comes down to color story because they're all beautiful formula, beautifully performing shadows, super high quality, and you're not going to get a bad look. It's just a matter of playing with the colors that are pulling you in at any given time. And the undertones of the palettes, I have to rank the cooler ones a little bit higher because while I do love to work with warm shadows, I still need to have the right kinds of undertones. So I don't know, I think those could really go back and forth. Just today where I'm ranking them, that's where they are. And finally, in the #1 spot, a What'sUp beauty palette. I have to give this unquestionably to the Dragon Eye palette. This palette is everything. This palette hits every single nail squarely on the head. It ticks every box. Perfection. The outer, like the box packaging, this is a smooth touch with some just these glowy scales, and you can see the lettering. Beautiful. Then the palette inside. This packaging is bomb.com. It's awesome. It's also soft touch, and then this is all raised and embossed, and it's textured, but still you've got the same rose gold logo. The colors, they're glowing. The detail, the attention to detail, absolutely awesome. And then let's just talk about the color story because this is gorgeous. This is so on theme. It's so perfect. These tealy, purple, kind of greeny, silvery sorts of tones, they really do look like the packaging. They really do make you think of some mythical, magical creature. They are glowing, they are quality, they are beautiful, they're so easy to work with, and the looks that you get are amazing. I have not used this palette as much as I should, so shame on me. Beautiful palette. Most of these shifting shades are duochromatic, at least. You know, they might be purple green or gold and yellowy pink, and like what's this one up here, sort of a silver purpley blue shade. This one here, Scales, is purple green blue. This Fierce is a green gold. The shimmer shades are just, they're so sparkly, they're so pretty, they're so glimmery, but yet lightweight, my perfect formula. Just like Unearthly Cosmetics has a formula, a shimmer formula like that. I love it. And the mattes they're butter. They're like Sydney Grace mattes, they're like Blend Bunny mattes, they're like Unearthly mattes. I think that actually I would probably compare this entire, both formulas, shimmers and mattes, to Unearthly, and I love it. I love it so much. So this palette is beautiful. Usually the previous two What'sUp beauty palettes they've had more neutral leaning shimmers and then pops of sparkle and color in the shimmers. This one has the most interesting mattes so far. They really broke their mold a little bit and ventured into the more colorful mattes with purples. Still pretty safe, but the way that they executed this palette, it completely works. It completely works. It's also quite a lovely companion for the other What'sUp beauty palettes. I still have Geodes, but I have decluttered Monsoon. I mean, technically decluttered, but I gave it to a friend. And so I now just have the two, but they're gonna be beautiful together. So this is my #1 in my recent ranking. Thank you guys so much for being here today. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I think this is my last video going up in November, so you can start to see December content soon. Again, let me know in the comments what you want to see in December. I'll definitely be doing a declutter or a palette collection tour, maybe put them both together. I know that those are always well viewed and people love them, and I mean, I love them too. So I certainly have some palettes I'm planning on passing along, but I would just enjoy hearing some of your feedback. What are you liking on my channel? What content do you like the most? What do you want to see more of? And this could even transfer into the new year, 2025. What are you looking for? Do you want to see themes? Do you want to see more of one series or category? Do you want to see, I don't know. Tell me what you're interested in watching, because I enjoy this field, this hobby. I enjoy having a YouTube channel, conversing with you guys in the comments, making content, having a place to share my eyeshadow looks, talking about eyeshadow and art and creativity, and also other things too, because if you've spent any time here on my channel, you know that it's not just talking about eyeshadow. I also bring in topics in life, perspective, introspection, philosophy, I mean, all kinds of stuff. I am so grateful for you for clicking on my video and for giving me a small piece of your day. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Do let me know in the comments what you think. Perhaps you'll consider liking and subscribing before you go if you like this content and you want to see more. And I look forward to chatting with you guys and connecting with you further in my next video. Bye.